In the final episode of one of the greatest shows ever made, a New York mob boss walks 3 blocks down a Manhattan sidewalk and ends up in a completely different country. He barely registers it while it's happening. The camera doesn't make a fuss about it, no dramatic music, no close-up. Just an old man on a cell phone, surrounded by signs he can't read, in a neighborhood that wasn't supposed to exist. That moment is the entire thesis of The Sopranos, and almost nobody talks about it. We're talking about The Sopranos finale, Made in America, aired June 10th, 2007. The episode everyone remembers for the diner, for Don't Stop Believin', for the cut to black that broke the internet before the internet was really ready to be broken. But buried in the middle of that hour is a 30-second sequence that quietly does more thematic work than the final scene ever could. Here's what happens. Butch DiConcini, underboss of the Lupertazzi crime family, walks out of Il Cortile in Little Italy and takes a call from his boss, Phil Leotardo. The episode opens with a double-decker tour bus rolling down Mulberry Street. The tour guide explains that the famous Little Italy once covered over 40 square blocks and has now been reduced to a single row of shops and cafes. 40 blocks to 1 row. A tourist trap, with Italian flags strung up for the cameras. On the phone, Butchie tries to suggest calling off the war with New Jersey. Phil refuses and ends the call. The war stays on. Butchie hangs up, looks around, and realizes he's standing in Chinatown. He's been walking for maybe 5 minutes. He didn't cross a border. Nobody changed the signs on him. The neighborhood he started in just ended without him noticing. That's the moment. That's the whole show in one shot. Let me explain why. Start with the geography. Little Italy in Manhattan is no longer what your grandfather described to you. By the time The Sopranos aired, real-life Little Italy had been swallowed almost whole. The census numbers are brutal. In 1910, the area housed close to 10,000 Italians at the peak of the community. By the 2010 census, not a single resident there had been born in Italy. Not one. What remains today is restaurants, gift shops, a costume of itself. The show knew this. David Chase knew this, and he was not subtle about it. The tour bus at the start of the scene literally narrates the death of Little Italy out loud, while the man who runs organized crime in New York walks down that same street 50 feet away. They're being talked about in past tense by a tour guide in front of them.
It once covered over 40 square blocks.
Now look at the framing. Butchie is supposed to be high up in his world. He's the underboss of New York's largest crime family, one of the most powerful men in the New York mob. And we watch him pace down a sidewalk holding his cell phone and dissolve into a crowd of strangers. He doesn't blend in. He sticks out, an old man in a dark overcoat, surrounded by produce stalls and Chinese signage, trying to remember how he got there. Here's the line you should remember. Butchie got lost because the wrong turn was made for him. By time, by money, by immigration patterns he never paid attention to. The world rearranged itself around him while he was busy fighting over who gets to extort a bakery in Bensonhurst. This is what the show has been screaming at us since season 1. In Tony's very first therapy session with Dr. Melfi, he tells her he's getting the feeling that he came in at the end. The best is over. She tells him many Americans feel that way. He laughs it off. He spends 6 seasons trying to prove her wrong. And then, in the final hour, his counterpart in New York walks himself into the literal disappearance of the world they share. Now here's where it gets interesting. This Chinatown moment doesn't come out of nowhere. The Sopranos spent the better part of 6 seasons building toward it. Think about the shakedowns. Early in the series, mob extortion works the old way. You walk in, you threaten the owner, you walk out with an envelope. Then, in season 6, Patsy Parisi and Bert Gervasi try to shake down a corporate coffee chain. The manager basically shrugs at them. He tells them every last coffee bean is logged in the computer, that corporate accounts for everything, that if anything goes missing, he gets fired and someone else takes his place tomorrow. The manager isn't even scared. He's confused, like they're speaking a dead language. Patsy walks out and mutters the line that should be carved on the show's tombstone. It's over for the little guy. It keeps happening.
Caputo Live Poultry. I represent the Jamba Juice.
Tony sells a building he owns, the one that houses Caputo's live poultry, to a Jamba Juice. Paulie spends an entire episode in the old country, walking around Naples saying commendatori wrong, and eventually asking a confused Italian waiter for macaroni and gravy. Hesh Rabkin gets jumped by Phil's guys after dining at a Chinese restaurant in Brooklyn. Season 6 opens on Tony and Carmela eating, of all things, sushi at a fancy Japanese place that Tony has fallen in love with. A pattern. The Italian-American world the show is built on is being absorbed. sometimes by global capital, sometimes by other immigrant communities doing exactly what Italians did a century earlier. And the mob, supposedly the most ruthless and adaptive force in the underworld, has no answer for any of it. You can shoot a rival. You can burn down a restaurant. You can't shoot a corporation. You can't burn down a demographic shift. The genius of the Chinatown Walk is that it stages this defeat without a word of dialogue. The Sopranos at its peak trusts you to see it. No character monologue explaining what just happened. No dramatic zoom. No music sting. Just a confused old man and a wide avenue. By the way, that avenue is Canal Street. It is the literal geographic border between Little Italy and Chinatown. You don't accidentally cross it. Butchie crosses it because he's so consumed by the call that the rest of the world has gone invisible to him. He's lost in his own war, while history walks right past him. Quick film history detour, because this matters. The Sopranos references the 1974 film Chinatown more than once. There's a scene in season 5, the famous test dream episode, where a clip from the movie plays on a TV inside Tony's dream. The film surfaces across the series like a recurring shadow, and the most famous line of that movie is the closing line. Forget it, Jake. It's Chinatown.
Forget it, Jake. It's Chinatown.
That line means something very specific. It means there are forces in this world bigger than you, older than you, more powerful than you. You will never fully understand them. You will never beat them. The best you can do is walk away and pretend it didn't happen. David Chase puts that exact feeling into his ending. Butchie standing on the wrong corner is a direct visual quote. So is the way the show itself ends. No big finale shootout. No final monologue. No villain defeated. A cut to black. Forget it. It's just Jersey. The Mafia in The Sopranos is constantly framed as a force of nature. The guys see themselves that way. Tony talks about Gary Cooper, the strong silent type. Junior sings old Neapolitan ballads at funerals. Phil delivers speeches about his Sicilian grandfather and the great Leonardo da Vinci. They believe they're the inheritors of something epic. And then Chase pulls the camera back. There's a sit-down scene late in season 6. Tony's people and Phil's people meet in a freezing, half-empty warehouse to negotiate the war. The shot is wide, almost uncomfortably wide. You can see the entire room, and what you see is a handful of middle-aged men in heavy coats, breath fogging in the cold, arguing over who owes who an apology. That's the war. That's the empire. A pneumonia risk in a leaky warehouse. The Chinatown scene is the daylight version of that. Pull the camera back. Look at the actual size of the world these men control. It fits in your viewfinder. The city does not. So now we get to the title. The episode is called Made in America. And once you see what Chase is doing, that title becomes one of the cruelest jokes in television history. Made in America. Watch what gets shown to you in that episode. Meadow drives a Lexus. AJ ends up in a new BMW M3 his parents buy him after his Nissan literally bursts into flames in the woods. Phil Leotardo, the most aggressively old-school Italian-American character in the entire series, gets shot at a gas station decked out in American flags, and the vehicle that finishes him off is a Ford Expedition. We get a lingering close-up of the Ford logo on the grille before Phil even gets out, then another close-up of the Ford logo on the wheel as the tire turns. A Japanese car for the daughter, a German car for the son, an American car killing the last real mob boss at an American shrine. Made in America. By who? With what? For whom? The Italian-American mob built their identity on being uniquely American. The immigrant success story with a body count. They invented an entire aesthetic that Hollywood then sold back to the world. Pizza, calzone, The Godfather, Goodfellas. Way back in season 1, Paulie Walnuts is standing at the counter of a corporate coffee shop with Big Pussy, and he loses it. He tells Pussy that Italians invented this whole thing. Pizza, calzone, espresso, and now every other group is getting rich off it. He's complaining about being copied. He should be complaining about being replaced. That's what the Chinatown Walk is really showing you. Look at who's actually erasing the Italians now. A rival family didn't do it, the feds didn't do it, the century did it, the neighborhood did it. The exact same engine that made them powerful in 1910 is now running underneath someone else. There is nothing in the mob playbook that can stop it. You can't whack a century. Butchie walks into Chinatown and he's not in danger. Nobody there knows who he is. Nobody there cares. He has no leverage, no customers, no enemies, no history. He's a tourist in a country he thought he ran. That's the line. He's a tourist in a country he thought he ran. The Sopranos gets described as a show about therapy, a show about a mob boss, a show about America. All true. The deepest layer, the one this scene cracks open, is something quieter. It's a show about what it feels like when your world has already ended and nobody told you. That's what Chase wanted you to see in those 30 seconds on Canal Street. An old man on a cell phone, surrounded by a city that has moved on without him, still fighting a war the rest of the world stopped caring about 2 decades ago. Nobody whacked Butchie. The neighborhood did it for them. I want to hear your pick. What's the most overlooked detail in the Sopranos finale? The one nobody talks about but you noticed on a rewatch? Drop it in the comments. I read every one.